Hey, welcome back. Since the last few movies I've reviewed have been Friday the 13th, I figure I'm going to stay with the series, the Paramount years, not New Line. We didn't get there yet. But funny enough, I'm going to talk about Friday the 13th Part 7, The New Blood, or as it was originally called when they started shooting, Jason's Destroyer. They changed the title, obviously. But after Part 6 was released in 1986. It did some bucks and it was well received by fans. Um, Paramount was already interested in trying to do Freddy versus Jason. But at the time, Paramount owned Jason, New Line owned Freddy. So there was a lot of negotiating to do to get these two to rights issues, all that kind of thing, to make the movie happen. New Line was interested, Paramount was interested, but they could never make it work. But they spent the first half of 87 negotiating. And it just didn't work out. Now, I know I said in Jason Takes Manhattan review, I made a mistake. I said it came out in 88. Jason Takes Manhattan came out in 89. Part 7 came out in 88. And that was because, like I said, the first part of 87, they spent negotiating with New Line to try to get Freddy vs. Jason together. And when it didn't work out, by December of 87, they had hired a writer. And then they hired John Carl Buechler, who was a makeup effects artist. He had directed a few movies up to that point. He had directed Troll and he directed Cellar Dweller. But he was mostly known for makeup effects. He did makeup effects for a movie called Prison with Viggo Mortensen. And he did other makeup effects, and his workshop did the effects for Friday the 13th Part 7. Then he went on to do effects for Halloween 6 and other movies. If you look up his IMDb, the man passed away last year, but he did a lot of work in the makeup effects area of filming. By the time he got hired, he had to basically go through pre-production, shoot the movie, post-production, editing, all that stuff, and the movie was out by May of 88. So basically, by the time they got rolling, they had 5 months to do all that and get the movie out. So it was a very constrictive timeline they had to get this movie done. And since when Freddy vs. Jason fell through and they couldn't do that, they wanted to bring somebody in that was a match for Jason. And basically what they made, I know fans like to refer it to, is basically Jason versus Carrie. They introduced this character with telekinesis. She can move things with her mind and do all these kind of things. And her name is Tina in the movie. And we're introduced to her. I'm going to spoil the movie. It's been out since 88. So if you're a fan of the series, I know this is probably... When I was a kid and we used to go to video stores and rent movies, yes, kids out there, we had to go to a video store and rent VHS tapes and watch them because not many people bought movies back then. This one, 6 and 4 were probably the ones I rented the most consistently. I'd rent the other ones, but those were the ones I'd rewatch the most. I'm not saying this movie is great, and I'm not saying it's the best in the series. I'm just saying it when I was a kid, I really liked the idea of this girl who had powers that could battle Jason on a level that he never seen before. So it was a match for Jason we hadn't seen up until that point. So that kind of cool, and it took it in a more fantastical area compared to the rest of them. Besides the fact that Jason comes back to life every movie and they could do whatever they want to him and he still comes back. Other than that, those fantastical elements, it even took it more fantastical approach. And the movie starts off with this little girl, Tina as a little girl, on Crystal Lake. Now, they don't really tell you what time frame in the series this takes place in. Not that continuality really had anything to do with it. I mean, Friday the 13th, the continuality aspect of it was always stretched so thin, you never knew sometimes, and this one's no different. You don't know what time in the timeline this really takes place. They don't say. But she hears her mom and dad fighting, and she runs out and gets on a boat. They have this dock, this long, nice dock out into the lake, Crystal Lake. And she's mad at her dad, and she tells her dad she hates him, and he's trying to get her to come back to shore. And with her telekinesis, she makes the dock shift, and it collapses and he goes into the water, and basically she kills him by accident. Now, that opening scene, it kind of sets up for what's going to happen later, but I'm not a big fan of that scene now as an adult. but whatever. It sets up the rest of the movie. Shows her power, her problems, like what she has a hard time reconciling it as she gets older. They show that. And now we fast forward, now she's an adult. And she's going back to Camp Crystal Lake, which you had this big traumatic experience there. Why would you go back there? But they're going back there on the recommendation by her psychiatrist. And her mom's with her, and they go back to Crystal Lake. And as they get there, the cabin right across from where they're staying, which has happened, funny enough, is the same cabin from Friday the 13th Part 4. Well, technically some of it is shot with the exterior of the one from Part 4, but this movie was shot in Alabama. But they did shoot the kids in the other cabin, in that cabin back in California. And they're moving in, and they're going to have a party weekend because the one guy's birthday's going on. They're having a surprise birthday party. And all of a sudden she's having bad memories, and she doesn't want to be there, but her doctor, who has ulterior motives for bringing her there, he assures her this is what she needs to reconcile what happened to her father and exactly what her powers are and what it means in the grand scheme of things. It doesn't get too psychological, but that's kind of like the setup. And one night she's upset with being there, and her doctor have an argument, and her doctor comes off as a complete scumbag right from the beginning. He's not a very sympathetic character, and it's like, if I was her mom, thinking about it logically, which you can't really think about these movies too logically, but we're going to do it a little bit here, I would not let this guy treat my daughter no way, because the guy just comes off as a scumbag, and he pushes her buttons constantly and argues with her, and she gets upset and she leaves the house, and she goes down to the lake, and she starts thinking about her dad, and the water starts bubbling, and they show Jason hanging there from Part 6. Like I said, they don't say the time frame, how long since Part 6 this movie takes place, but the water starts bubbling, Jason wakes up, you see his head snap up to attention, and the chain around his neck snaps, and he comes bursting out of the water, and she passes out. Now, this is the odd part for Jason. She's passed out on the beach. Jason saw her when he came up. He doesn't do anything to her. He just walks past. They don't show him walking past her, but he walks up the beach, and he sees the kids in the cabin partying next door, and Jason's alive. Which, in this movie, I got to say, his makeup is spectacular. John Carl Buechler, if you see the documentary Crystal Lake Memories, he talks about how he wanted to show Jason decomposed. Like, you could see his spine when they showed a shot from behind him, his rib cage hanging out. Stuff like, I think it's a really cool design. I think it's one of the best makeups on Jason ever. I'm a big fan of that makeup. He looks great. The mask looks good. It looks damaged from all the damage over the years. They actually used the same mold for the hockey mask as they did when he first got it in Part 3. They just damaged it and made it look older because it's been underwater for so long and went through all this stuff. So Jason looks great. And this is Kane Hodder's first appearance as Jason. And he's great as Jason. He always was great, even in the movies like Part 8, which really sucks. He was always good in that. Jason Goes to Hell a little bit. Jason's in that movie. And he was good in Jason X, even though that movie is really not that good. Although you can have a cheesy fun time with it, but it's not that good. So back to Part 7. So there's typical drama with the kids in the house that are partying between each other. One girl, Melissa, is the big bitch, and she thinks she's better than everybody else. So she kind of is demeaning towards some of the other girls that are there. And some of the guys you could tell, some of the guys are more popular than other guys. They have the geeky guy who's a sci-fi writer, and the stoner, the typical stoner, all that stuff. And basically Jason kills them one by one. And by the time Tina has visions of Jason, even after she brings him back to life and she saw him, and she tries to tell her doctor, and he tells her it's just a manifestation about what she did to her father. So they won't believe her, and neither is her mom. And she's very upset, and her mom still won't believe her and take her out of there. She threatens to, and then she decides not to because the doctor talks her out of it. And finally, Tina's invited over to the other cabin with these kids. The one guy who really likes her asks her to come over, and she does. And while she's there, she has this vision of Jason killing the one guy. And she kind of freaks out and leaves. And then from there, we're introduced to some campers, and there's a famous kill where Jason kills the wife in a sleeping bag. That's a kill they repeated in Jason X because it's one of the fan favorites over the years. And there's some cool kills, but unfortunately this movie and John Carl Buechler has said many times in interviews, in print and on video, that the MPAA butchered his movie. Like, he was going for a makeup effect extravaganza, a lot of blood, a lot of gore, and he knew he'd have a hard time with the ratings board. But he said the movie pretty much got gutted. They gutted everything out of it. And if you notice the kills, they cut away a lot. They don't show a whole lot of blood. But in Crystal Lake Memories, they show some sequences, the uncut footage, and it's definitely way bloodier and way gorier. But they say they don't have the footage to put back in to make a true director's cut or uncut version of this film, which is a bummer. It'd be nice to see it uncut, what the director had envisioned originally. And then finally we get to the point where people are dying, and Tina's has her showdown with Jason. And it is cool, and it's all, obviously it's 80, it was filmed in 87, released in 88, or it was filmed in the beginning of 88 and released in May. So everything's practical, obviously. This is before CGI. And it looks great. All the mechanical effects come off really well. The telekinesis part, her battling Jason, there's some really cool scenes. Is the movie perfect? No, there's definitely problems. Some of the acting is not the best. And there's some script choices that are like, what the hell is going on here? But overall, it's a fun movie because of her battling with Jason and the stuff she can do. It takes a long while to get there. Even though the movie's only like an hour and 28 minutes long, it still feels like it's because all the soap opera drama going on. It's not very interesting with the kids. Now, Tina's probably the most interesting character because everything she's gone through. But the rest of the kids are just there for the slaughter, like most of these kids. But their drama is such... It's all pointless and just soap opera shit, really. But once Tina and Jason start going after each other, that's definitely makes the whole movie right there. And the design of Jason, Kane Hodder's performance is all great. Now, the ending is where it falls apart. I'm not a big fan of this ending, how they kill Jason. Now, there was 2 versions shot of the ending. Same ending, just 2 different versions. John Carl Buechler, there was an associate producer on the movie who wasn't a horror fan, so why was she even involved? Who knows? But she would undercut the director's vision left and right. And he envisioned at the end, she makes her father come out of the water and drag Jason underwater, and that's how they kill him. Well, his original idea was that the father, and there is actually pictures, if you watch that documentary, there's some footage of him all done up in makeup, make him look like he's decomposing like he was in the water, like Jason. He looks more like zombie-ish or more decomposing like he's been dead a while. Like he should have looked, not... In the theatrical version, he just comes out with mud on him, and he looks like he did when he went in. It's dumb as hell and doesn't look right. Now, his vision would have made more sense, because he would have been decomposing, it would have looked a little funky. He's been in the water for, I think, the time frame, if you follow the timeline a little bit, I think it's like 8 years, maybe. Who knows? But she undercut him and said no. So he had to film this other version with him coming out just with some mud on him, which looks stupid. The other version would have worked a lot better, but it's what we got. It's not a satisfying conclusion. I think the other version would have worked better. I still wouldn't have loved that version, how they killed Jason, but it's what we got. Okay, but for the quick turnaround in the movie, considering they had like 5 months to do pre-production, shoot it, edit it, do the post-production, and get it out and advertise it, the movie turned out pretty good, I would say. Again, this is not my favorite movie. Part 4 is my favorite of the series. I would even say I enjoy Part 6 a little bit more now that I'm older. But I like this movie. I would give it a 6.5 out of 10 like I gave 6. Even though I like 6 a little bit more. I should have gave 6 like a 6.75. This is one I go to. I think it has some of the most rewatchability of the series, honestly. Because of the battle between her and Jason. That's the most fun part. And they really sell it. And it looks good. I mean, the movie looks fine. I mean, John Carl Buechler did a fine job considering all the hassle he was trying to do and all the stuff he had to deal with behind the scenes going against his vision. It's a shame we'll never get the uncut version. I think it would have been cool. It'd be cool to see what they originally intended. But by that point, the Friday the 13th series was starting to get butchered by the MPAA because early on they let them get away with a lot, like in the original movie, and then even Part 4 is really pretty gory too. And then by that, in the later 80s, they were really starting to crack down on movies. Also, the little girl, another point of trivia, the little girl in the movie who plays young Tina, is actually the same little girl. If you like the Texas Chainsaw Massacre franchise, she's the same little girl in Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3. Same girl. Just a little point of trivia. But other than that, yeah, I'd give it a 6.5 out of 10. I would bump up 6 to a 6.75 because 6 is, I think now, at my age, I think it's a little better of a movie. But I like this movie. There's a lot of rewatchability to it. It's definitely way better than Part 8. After this movie actually made money. I think the budget was $2.8 million, and it made over $19 million. And then, like I said in the Jason Takes Manhattan review, that was the one that was the death knell for the series with Paramount because it only made 14. It was the lowest grossing one. And that's when they sold the rights to New Line, and then we got Jason Goes to Hell. But it's kind of funny to think that they were looking at doing Freddy vs. Jason back in '87. They just couldn't make it work. It wasn't until they sold the rights to New Line where they were able to do it because they own rights to both characters, and they could do it without having to worry about, negotiating with another studio. But yeah, I give it a 6.5 out of 10. It's an enjoyable movie if you've never seen it. It's worth checking out. I think it's one of the cooler designs for Jason in the movie. And it gave us Kane Hodder as Jason for the first time. But yeah, that's it for me. Take care, and I will see you soon. Thanks.